I'm Jack Miller, a man who once thought his life was the very definition of perfection. I had a steady career as a lawyer in Chicago, a beautiful home I built with my own 2 hands, and a wife, Emily, who was my everything. She was my world, my anchor. But everything changed on a quiet Saturday morning, when, out of nowhere, the sky above Chicago turned dark and the rain began to pour. It wasn't the weather I had planned for, but I didn't mind. I've always loved golf, and that morning, I was eager to hit the course for a round. The clouds hung low, and though the rain wasn't ideal, I figured it'd pass quickly. Golf was my escape, a place where I could leave behind the grind of work and lose myself in the rhythm of the game. It was where I found peace. Or so I thought. By the time I reached the 3rd hole, the rain was relentless. I decided to cut the game short and head home. A strange unease bubbled up inside me during the drive, but I couldn't place it. It was a sensation I couldn't shake, but I ignored it. When I got home, everything was unnervingly quiet. Emily always greeted me warmly, calling me her love when I came through the door. But today, there was nothing. The garage door stood wide open, yet there was no car in the driveway. The silence felt wrong. I entered through the back door, my steps hesitant, and then, as I crossed into the living room, I stopped dead in my tracks. There, on the couch, was Emily, wearing nothing but her underwear, sitting far too close to Michael Harris, a colleague I had considered a friend. Michael, similarly dressed in nothing but his boxers, was locked in an intimate gaze with her. The connection between them was palpable, and it struck me like a physical blow. Everything I thought I knew, everything I trusted, shattered in an instant. I stood frozen. I couldn't find the words. And then Emily, completely unfazed, simply stood, brushed her hair back, and looked at me as if I were the one who had done something wrong. "Aren't you going to say something?" she asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. I couldn't speak. All I could do was stare at the 2 of them, then at my hands, feeling everything inside me unravel. Outside, the rain hammered against the windows, but inside, it felt like a storm that was about to destroy everything I knew. Finally, I found my voice. "Get out." Michael scrambled to get dressed and bolted without a word, but Emily remained, unshaken. Her eyes, though filled with sorrow, carried no hint of regret. "Don't you have anything to say?" she asked again, her tone cold and steady. I gritted my teeth, speaking each word with force. "Get out. I'll pack your things and leave them in the garage. You can pick them up later." She opened her mouth to speak, but I didn't want to hear it. It was all crystal clear now. "Go with him. I'm calling his wife." My mind was reeling, but I turned away, leaving her standing there, emotionless. I dialed Irene, Michael's wife. As the phone rang, a knot tightened in my stomach. When she picked up, her voice was calm, but the underlying anger was unmistakable. "Thanks for calling," she said. "I had a feeling something was off, but I never imagined it would be like this." "We've both been betrayed," I said, my voice rough with rage. "She's cheated on me, and he's going to pay." I don't remember much of what happened next. All I know is that Irene and I made a plan for revenge, a plan that would begin that very moment. The silence in the air felt suffocating, the rain outside intensifying like it could sense the storm brewing within me. But in the midst of all the chaos, one thing was clear: I finally knew the truth. Irene and I didn't waste time with doubt or unnecessary words. We both knew what had to be done. After the call, I walked straight to my office, opened my computer, and dug into Emily's account. Emails, messages, and videos, evidence that confirmed what I'd already seen. I couldn't look away, though the truth burned with every click. When Irene arrived at my house, she didn't say much. She simply nodded when I showed her the documents. Her eyes no longer held pity or surprise, only rage. "We're doing this right," she said, her voice calm but resolute. "We can't let them get away with this. We were in this together now, and I knew I couldn't just sit back anymore." Irene dove into Emily's financials, while I focused on gathering deeper, more incriminating evidence. It wasn't just emails and videos anymore. What I needed now were the kinds of details neither Emily nor Michael would ever think to protect. Every phone call, every meeting, could be a crucial piece of the intricate plan we were building. For hours, Irene and I worked in sync, side by side. Outside, the world continued, indifferent to my crumbling life, but inside, everything was in ruins. I never imagined I'd be in this position, but now that I was, I couldn't afford to hold on to things like self-respect or patience. Those qualities, the ones that had helped me build a life, suddenly seemed irrelevant. Revenge was all I had left, and I was going to make sure every detail unfolded exactly how I wanted it. I called Sarah, Emily's best friend, to ask what she knew. Sarah wasn't involved directly in Emily and Michael's affair, but she was a key link to Emily's social world. She'd always been there for Emily, so it stung that she hadn't said a word about the betrayal. But I understood now, everyone has their reasons. The conversation was brief, but Sarah's advice was invaluable. Emily always keeps things under control. Jack, don't let her think you'll just forget this. She might be trying to regain control of the situation. After hanging up, I was more determined than ever. Emily and Michael wouldn't get away with this. I wasn't the only one betrayed, but I was the one who would ensure they paid the price. Together, Sarah and Irene helped me dig deeper, tracking Emily's financial activity, bank accounts, credit card statements, hidden transactions. Each lie she'd told me about work trips and late nights at the office suddenly made sense. Those were just excuses to cover up her affair. Don't let her outsmart us again, Irene reminded me, her voice sharp. I nodded, feeling the weight of the plan we were about to execute. I reached out to a trusted lawyer, making sure all the legal paperwork was ready. Irene and I both knew this couldn't be a typical legal battle. Every move had to be precise, calculated. And I wouldn't stop until everyone involved felt the consequences. When the evidence was finally gathered, Irene and I met at a cafe near my house to go over the final details. We exchanged a silent look, and without saying a word, we knew we were doing the right thing. The coffee sat forgotten, growing cold between us, as we reviewed the documents, proof of Michael and Emily's deceit. Irene placed a stack of financial records on the table, her eyes gleaming with cold resolve. We start next week, when everything is in place, she said. Neither of them will escape what's coming. I looked at her, feeling a mix of emotions. I wasn't sure where I stood with her anymore, but I knew one thing for certain, there was no going back now. Betrayal like this doesn't leave room for forgiveness. Revenge wasn't just about power, it was about regaining the dignity that had been stolen from me. I made the call to Michael, delivering a message that was far more than a warning. If you keep avoiding this, I'll expose everything, and trust me, you don't want that. It felt like I was taking control again, though the weight of it didn't make the pain go away. Michael and Emily would pay for what they'd done. I was determined to make sure of it. But even with everything set in motion, a gnawing feeling lingered. This fight wasn't about money or reputation. It was punishment, the price for everything Emily and Michael had taken from me. They couldn't continue pretending their world was perfect. It was time for them to face the consequences. A few days later, on a windy, overcast afternoon, Irene and I met again at the cafe. No pleasantries this time, everything had to be exact. Irene brought with her a folder packed with the final details, evidence of Michael and Emily's illegal financial dealings, secret bank transfers, and hidden accounts. Are you ready for this? Irene asked, her voice as cold as ever, but unwavering. She had always been the anchor I needed during these moments. I nodded, staring at her across the table. Yes, but, I trailed off, unsure if I could carry out the last part of this plan. I can't do this alone. Michael needed to know that I wasn't someone who could be easily manipulated. Irene gave a cold smirk, her hatred for him clear in her eyes. He won't have anything left to hide, she said, her voice sharp with intent. I've also lined up a financial blow for him. We're not just reclaiming what they took, we're making them regret ever crossing us. Her words sent a chill through me, but a dark satisfaction followed. Irene wasn't just a friend, she was a force to be reckoned with. Together, we had meticulously planned every move. In a few hours, we would be sitting at an upscale restaurant where Michael would be attending an important business meeting. It was the perfect chance to make him feel the weight of his actions. This wasn't about confrontation alone, it was about making them feel the pressure, to show Michael and Emily that every step they took was being watched. Irene had a recording device and a hidden camera ready, and I had the documents, hard evidence, of everything they'd done. The truth was coming out, and they weren't going to escape it. At the restaurant, we walked past tables bathed in warm golden light, its brightness only underscoring the coldness in our eyes. Michael was seated in the far corner, talking to business partners, his arrogance radiating from him. It felt like we were spectators in a play, but this time, we were writing the ending. He has no idea what's about to hit him, Irene murmured, her smile sharp with confidence. We settled at a table nearby, close enough to observe without being noticed. Irene started the camera, while I laid out the documents, each one a silent declaration of what was to come. After a few moments, Michael's eyes flicked over to us. His conversation faltered, then stopped completely. Confusion flashed in his eyes. There was no remorse, no recognition of the weight of what he had done, just the arrogant smirk of a man who still thought he could win. "Jack," he said, his tone challenging, "you look like you want something." I gave him a cold stare. "You don't have to pretend anymore, Michael, everything I need is already prepared." Irene stayed silent, her gaze steady and unblinking, capturing every moment. No more words were necessary. The evidence on the table spoke louder than anything we could say. Michael's eyes darted to the documents, then to Irene, then back to me. His face tightened, his jaw set in an effort to hold control. "What's this?" he demanded, panic creeping into his voice. "You don't need to worry," I replied, calm as ice. "Just hand over every transaction you've made with Emily. If not, we release everything, videos, emails. Neither of you will have a cent left to your name." I laid the documents down slowly, the weight of them clear. Irene passed me the recorder. We had crossed the line from mere confrontation to full exposure. Michael's face drained of color as the panic set in. He rose abruptly, knocking his chair back, and bolted out of the restaurant without another word. The confident man I once knew was gone, replaced by a frightened coward running from the truth. But that was just the beginning. Shortly after, my phone rang. Emily's name flashed on the screen. Her voice was thick with tears, begging for a chance, pleading for me to take her back, but I wouldn't be swayed this time. "You had your chance, Emily," I said, my voice cold. "I've made my decision. I feel nothing for you anymore." I hung up, and turned to the next phase, protecting what was mine. I met with my lawyer, all the evidence in hand. This wasn't about seeking justice for hurt feelings, it was about making them face consequences for their actions. The documents weren't just emotional artifacts, they were a full financial record of their deceit, secret accounts, shady transfers, everything. It was a map of their hidden lives. As my lawyer sifted through the documents, he looked up with a nod of approval. "Jack," he said, "this is more than enough to leave them with no way out." I didn't feel satisfaction, only a grim resolve. "This is just the beginning," I replied. "We have a long way to go." Michael hadn't just betrayed me, he had deceived his own wife, and no matter how far they ran, consequences were coming for them both. Each call I made, every meeting with my lawyer, every conversation with Irene, it was all another step toward the justice they never saw coming. We meticulously prepared for the asset division. Emily thought she'd get a hefty share, but she had no idea I had already taken control. Every investment she made during our marriage was under scrutiny, every move she made was watched. When the court proceedings began, Emily's mask finally slipped. She wasn't the woman I had once loved, she was just someone I wanted to make pay for what she had done. Her calls came often, desperate and frantic, but all I felt was disgust. The legal notice about the property division pushed her into full panic mode. Day by day, I saw the fear in her eyes grow as she realized the walls were closing in. But I had no sympathy left. She could cry, scream, beg, it wouldn't change the truth. Meanwhile, Michael, once untouchable in his arrogance, was visibly shaken. A part of me felt a grim satisfaction in seeing him tremble, knowing he was facing the consequences of his lies. This wasn't petty revenge, it was justice, pure and simple. And slowly, I began to feel whole again. Each meeting with my lawyer, each check-in with Irene, they gave me something I hadn't felt in weeks: clarity, power, dignity. When the court rendered its final decision, it was over. Emily and Michael, once so smug, so sure of themselves, were cornered. Emily's pleas for reconciliation weren't about forgiveness anymore, they were desperate cries for survival. "You can't do this, Jack," she begged in one final call, her voice broken and pleading. "This is what you chose, Emily," I said, my tone unwavering. "You and Michael both have to pay, don't expect mercy." The court divided the assets fairly. I didn't take everything, but I didn't leave them with anything they had tried to hide. Every secret, every stolen dollar was dragged into the light, and I took only what was rightfully mine. When it was over, I stood alone in the empty house. Everything had changed, but despite all I'd lost, I felt a strange sense of peace. I would never forget the look on their faces in court, when everything unraveled. when their carefully crafted world fell apart under the weight of truth. But above all, I learned one thing: not every battle is won through revenge. Some are won through dignity, by taking control of your own life. Betrayal can break you, but only if you let it. If you know how to stand tall and face it, you'll always be the ultimate winner.